ungodly hours, like 3 a.m. for designs, and they still sent it. So thank you everyone for doing this. Some of them even skipped breakfast, so huge shout out. Okay, now I'd like to hand it over to Shaheem to take the session forward.
Good morning. Not bad. Today you all have energy unlike yesterday. How was yesterday? Good? Loved it? All right. By the way, we did plan to have some music around while you were having dinner. Unfortunately, due to some scenarios, we couldn't pull that off, right? Somebody was not okay with with we playing loud music near the poolside, and hence we had to chuck that plan. So sorry about it. But we'll do a poolside DJ dinner sometime soon when you're back on the campus, right? All right. So quick recap of what we did yesterday. We focused in the early part of the day on how you're going to learn, right? And what is better ways to learn. Better ways to learn things that sticks with you. How to make it stick with you. Learning by doing, learning by inquiry, purpose-driven learning, project-based learning, right? Those were the things that some glances of which you got yesterday. And did you like that? You all confidently say that's the right way to learn? Yes. Looking forward to it? Yes. We are excited to bring more of that to you, right? After that, we moved on to the industry. We wanted to help you understand the future of various sectors, various industries. And I think they did a good job of helping you understand a lot of things. By the way, amongst them, I think even if you have absorbed 10% of what they said, I think each one of you have learned at least one or two new things, right? They did speak a lot of things. I think a lot of you got excited with the entrepreneurship, startup ecosystem. That's a very good sign. That's a very good sign. I really think as a country, we need to start thinking more about giving employment than actually being employed. Nothing wrong in being employed though, but I think it's important to start thinking about how to give employment, right? It also makes you a better employee, by the way. And then we had some reasonable fun in the evening. I think we are divided as a crowd on how many people like the comic. Show of hands, how many people like the comic? Not bad, not bad. More than I thought. By the way, I didn't enjoy it much, being honest, right? I didn't enjoy it much. But you know, comedy is subjective. Some people like it, some people don't. So it's absolutely okay. And the show of hands clearly shows around 40–50% liked it. All right, good. So it was not bad. I was actually feeling terrible after he started performing, but at least 50% of you enjoyed. I'm feeling pretty okay. Dinner was good? Okay, very nice. All right, so we get started today. What do we do today? What we have on the agenda, first we tell you about clubs and studios at AU, right? Curriculum, learning that is one side, which you have to do, which you will have fun doing. But then over and beyond that, we want you to start pulling information, doing things that you are passionate about. That's where clubs and studios come, right? Takes it up a notch, depending on how much time, how much effort, how much passionate you are. We help you move your idea from brushing the subject, designing, articulating the solution, and actually prototyping the solution. And for those of you who want to give it a shot and realize it as a startup, we want to help you through our studios to realize that. And if it is great, if we all feel together that the product idea is great, you as a person has the zeal, passion to realize it, and there is true market that can be capitalized, then we put you in the incubation center to productize that idea, right? And give you wings to your startup/entrepreneurship journey. In a nutshell, that's your journey about taking your passion, moving it towards your entrepreneurship startup pathway. Do we have Jay on the line now? All right. Can we bring him up here? All right. So this idea of students doing projects, students having startup ideas, realizing them into a product, monetizing them as a company, you know, for the longest time I thought it's not probably possible for young kids to do it. Then I met Jay 3 years back, a little over 2 years. I would say, yeah, a little over 2 years, close to 3 years back. And Jay started telling me about these things kids in the US would do when they're in the school, and how Jay could actually invest time in them to take small ideas of theirs and help realize it while they're in the school, right? He participated in multiple events where they would take a group of kids, take them under their wings, and actually help productize their ideas. So that's when it started to me, Jay says this is possible in the school. Why shouldn't we do it in the undergrad program, right? So that's why I thought we have to bring in Jay today. He is probably the instigator of this idea in our founder's head and in all of us. So I want Jay to tell you about this enormous possibilities that you can do while you are learning to pursue an idea of yours to make a product and commercialize it. Jay, do you hear me? Jay's audio is not coming in. Jay, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Did you hear all the good things I told about you?
Yeah, I wish half of it was true.
All right, Jay. Thank you for the leading light, being the leading light towards studios and clubs at AU. I want the students to hear from you because you're the one who seeded that in our head.
Okay, guys, thanks for that intro. Without much more ado, good morning, everyone. This is Jay Prabhakar. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Everyone can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, I've been asked to talk to you folks about, this gaming studio concept. And I want to say it's pretty much a concept right now, but obviously Shilpa and Shaheem have done a lot of thinking about this. So my background briefly is in robotics and automation. I've been doing this for about 40 years. Of those 40 years, about 29, I've been on my own as a consultant. And I don't know how much you can see of the background in my office, but it looks pretty. Let me show you actually. So these are all some of the things that I have done. You can see some of my little children over there. They're all toys that I've designed. This one is another one that I'll talk to you about briefly. But essentially, okay, something happened. Okay. Essentially, what I've been doing is consulting for the past 30 years, let's say. I'm here to talk not about myself here, so I'll be very quick. Toys came to me by way of a business associate that I met in the course of consulting. And this guy is a really brilliant toy designer. He's been doing it for about 30 years. He's got so many awards and all this stuff. I was lucky enough to get acquainted with him, and then you sort of partnered with the guy. And we've had two very successful toys, together. One of these things is these little guys. Can you see this? So these are called singamajigs. They're little hand puppets, and when you press their stomachs, so they make funny noises. And also, we made about 50 of these things. There are different varieties of these things. And if you have two of them, two of them together, they actually harmonize. I don't know how many of you know about music, but okay, so they harmonize and they're very fun to be with. And they also sing songs. So this one will sing a song. And so on and so forth. So these were really very successful toys for us. This one's another one called Whack-A-Mole Tower. It's it's a little thingy that you play with. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about these things because they're in the past. But I want to tell you about how you folks can, take advantage of what AU is going to offer you. I think it's a golden opportunity to become entrepreneurs. And if you have an idea that you want to pursue or you have a passion, I think you guys are in the right place for this. So, most of my other things are not toys. They're all industrial goods. Like I have a thing called the Cool Watch that is a temperature tracker, and I have a water saving device, and so on and so forth. But enough about me. Okay. So the point that that I want to make to you all is, you know, pay attention to your world. Stop looking at those little, screens. Be aware of where you are in the world, and ideas will come to you. We're not all born with ideas, but if you pay attention to the world outside, you will come up with great ideas. So a long time ago, I saw a cement truck, one of those concrete mixing trucks. And on the side of it, it said, find a hole and fill it. And I forget the name of the company, but I went and Googled the company's name, and I was curious about what they meant by that. And what they were saying really is, you find a problem and solve it. And it doesn't have to be a problem. It can be a toy. It can be whatever you want it to be. It can be a novel. It can be a movie. Anyway, so enough about me. The real reason that AU wanted me to talk to you folks is we're looking for victims. I mean, students. We're looking for some students. Um, so the design studio is not looking only for technical people. We're looking for artists and dreamers and visionaries and techies and business people. Really, anyone. Anyone who wants to be in this game studio should be there. Not just can be there. They should be there. Um, so it's not like it's limited to only the technical people or coders or any of those things. So the way you do this in a broad 10,000-foot view of this thing is you apply to get into the game studio in the first year at AU. And the way you apply is there's a mentor, and that mentor will interview you. Now, this interview is not like you're not going to be asked to do some coding or build something or write something or draw something. All the mentor is looking for is like a heartbeat. We want to see enthusiasm. We want to see how excited you are to be doing something creative and inventive and not just doing rote learning like most of you know about. So we're looking for that heartbeat. We're looking for people who are enthusiastic about coming and doing something inventive. Even if it's not brand new, it's okay. But as long as it's new to you, that's what matters. So once your batch is formed, you guys all get together and brainstorm. And the batches are like cohorts. They're you know, your first year students will all be one batch, so to speak. And you guys brainstorm amongst yourselves, come up with an idea that you think you want to pursue, and then you go and present that to your mentor. And the mentor probably won't say very much. You know, the mentor is really there just to give you high level guidance. The whole thing is set up such that it's like a company, right? You are the company. You own it, you run it, you're responsible for it. You do and die by it. You do good things will happen. You do stupid things will happen. And it's okay. It's okay to do stupid things. This is one of the few places where you'll be told that failure is an option, actually. You do learn a lot from failing. It's not always about winning and, hitting the goal and all that good stuff. So what you do is you propose your idea to your mentor. The mentor will pretty much, like I said, he's going to be, or she is going to be very hands off, only giving you guidance if they think that something is, going to be not very good for either you or, the public that's going to consume this thing. So the company, like I said, is going to be structured the studio will be structured like a company. You'll have, technical team, artistic team, marketing, business. They will all be in this one company structure. And we believe that the leadership is going to fall out organically, meaning that leaders will lead and, the doers will do. And there's nothing saying that doers are worse off than leaders. Everyone's equal, everyone's necessary. Okay? So basically, what we want is for you guys to, think of ideas and present it to the mentors and say, look, we really like this idea. What do you think? We're going to go about it. This is how we want to approach the idea. And, that's it. You take off. You launch your project. Your project can be one. You can schedule it for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever you want the length to be, or however complex it is how long it's going to take. So once you have your idea set and you guys have formed your group, you sort of start functioning like an organism. You start functioning like like they call it swarming, right? Like bees and ants. They all get together and they know what to do. And that'll happen to you also. The idea being that we want you guys to go off and be entrepreneurs if possible. It's not essential, but it would be great if you all became entrepreneurs and went off and started your own companies. And towards that end, AU will guide you along a path. Like maybe you want to go off and do your own company, AU will guide you towards that. Or maybe you want AU's assistance to put you through to the entrepreneurial incubator, and we can do that as well. Pretty much it's wide open. We're looking for really people who know how to think outside the box. That interview that I mentioned earlier, we're not going, like I said, we're not going to ask you to go and code and do stuff like that. We're looking for people not to just be there because it's part of your quota that you have to be in a club. We're looking for people who are really excited to do something original, out of the box. Um, you know, so the games don't have to be. They can be play toys like this thing here. They can be. Chanpatna toys for all I care. I mean, you want to do Chanpatna toys in a certain way, that's okay by me. They can be board games, card games, role-playing games, multiplayer games, virtual reality, augmented reality, whatever. All we're looking for is someone to come along and say, hey, we have this really cool idea. And maybe that idea exists already. That's fine. As long as you're excited about doing it, something good will come from that. So, you know, that's really all I have to say about this, other than, we want you guys to come back as alumni, or even as your seniors, come back and start recruiting people into this game club, because man, you were so excited, to be in this club. This was so much fun that we were only requiring 10 hours a week, but man, I put in 40 hours a week. That's the kind of stuff we want. So we want that heartbeat, that enthusiasm, that I want to go do something with my life, not just mug something and spit it out at the exam. So that's sort of like the whole, the essence of this. Um, After this, whatever you want to call this, a talk or whatever, you may have questions. I'm sure we'll set up a portal through which you can ask questions, of AU, of me. Um, and, more details about the studio also will be available to you. But I think just because of plagiarism, we would want it to be available only to registered students and not something that you can download. You can only view it online for reasons I'm sure you understand. So that's really my spiel. And at this point, I'll take questions or whatever.
Jay, thanks. I know you took Game Studio as an example to illustrate how it can be done. Um,
Yep.
Questions from the team? Jay, I am actually excited for the kids to know about the robo competition that you helped with, right? I think that may be a good use case to help the students understand how something like a robo can be put together by a team of students, a team of kids.
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
some?
okay. So what Shahim is referring to is called it's called the U.S. First Robotics Competition. It was started by this guy called Dean Kamen, who's kind of a neighbor of mine. So this guy, he's actually the fellow who invented stents, believe it or not. The heart stents. So he and his brother, who was a heart surgeon, invented stents. Now, Dean Kamen is an entrepreneur. I mean, he's a guy who is into all manner of things. He's the fellow who invented the Segway, by the way, also, just in case you're wondering. So this guy has, a lot of talent. What he did was he said, look, in this world, sports are very highly valued. Like sports players, like cricketers, basketball players, baseball players, they get millions and millions of dollars, way more than they're worth. So Dean Kamen said, look, what we need is to start doing something like this for education. And by that, he doesn't mean bookish education. So what he started was a robot competition. So he said, what we're going to do is every year we're going to set a robotics challenge. And all of these schools all over the country, and actually the world now, um, form teams and compete. And the teams are structured pretty much like I described the game studio, where they have the technical kids, they have, and by the way, when I say kids, I mean these are high school kids and sometimes middle school kids. So think seventh through ninth for middle school and 10th through 12th for high school, right? So these kids actually get together and on top of a pretty hectic schedule, they form a team, and every year in February, they have a grand exposing of the challenge for that year. And the children are given something like 6 weeks in which, no, sorry, 8 weeks in which to design, build, test, and ship a working functional robot to a competition that's, it starts off regionally, then it goes to, starts off locally, then it goes regional, then it goes to nationals, and then it goes international. So it's a very big thing. But the important thing here is that these kids are all self-driven. I mean, they're not all techies, like I said. So some of these guys are just really good at doing like decorations for the robots. Some of the other kids are very good at, getting fundraising for their machines because you have to raise money for these things. So it's structured pretty much like I mentioned here, which is, you'll have in broad terms, you're going to have the artists, talking about gaming again, we're going to have the artists, the story designers, the kids who can do, like artwork. Then you're going to have the technical people, mechanical engineers, softwares, and then you'll have the business type people, the sales guys who may want to go off and find funding for this thing, for your idea. And then the business types who will structure the company, because one of the aspects of this would be, let's say one of your ideas comes along and it's really a cool idea and it actually has legs enough to go and become a product in the real world. Then you now have this problem of, okay, we've got 15 people in this group that have all put in sweat equity into this toy or this game, and they need to be compensated because now we're going to make real money. We're going to make some real money. So the business kids will come in there and say, hey, look, this is how we structure this thing. Now, you guys are all young. You don't have all the answers. You don't have even all the questions. But that's where the mentor and AU come into play. So basically, they will guide you possibly by sending you off to the incubator, for instance. But the idea is that we want you to be excited about, going off and being your own person. If you want to just go off and work for HNT or whoever, that's fine also. But, we're looking for those few people who want to go out and be their own people. Start a company and take the risk and, go out there and beat the doors down and get money and funding and all that good stuff. So that's the stuff we're looking for. So when I mentioned the interview with the mentor, That interview is not going to be asking you, do you know C++ or C sharp or any of those things? We don't give a crap about that at this point. At some point we will, but at this entry level point, when we were looking to find whether you're a good fit for this club, that is going to be the threshold. It's not a very high threshold, but it is a threshold. So going back to the robotics thing, so these teams are given a challenge and they're given a kit that is common to all teams. So like they'll have, electric motors from seats from cars, and stuff like that. They just throw stuff together and they give every team the same exact kit. And you're allowed to spend so much more money on top of that for machining and things like that, right? So given these resources, you have to make the most winningest robot. But the fun thing about the first robotics is that it's not about just going and annihilating your opponent. No. What you have to do is go form teams, alliances. You have to form alliances with other teams. So this is where the salespeople in a given team come into play, because the salespeople, what they do is they say, okay, my team's robot is a defensive robot. It's not an offensive robot. We know how to play defense. So what we're going to do is we're going to go scout around the remaining teams in that arena and parlay with them and say, look, we have a really good defense robot. We see that you have a good offense robot. How about we form a team? So they have to do that 2 times. So eventually a side will have 3 teams. Three teams make an alliance, and there's 2 sides. So the 2 alliances play each other. And the idea is not to get too far ahead in score, because if you do, you get penalized. So it's really a very interesting way of doing things, because it's not about blindly saying, I'm going to kill the opposition. No. They want you to just beat the opposition by giving them a chance to actually compete. So the reason for that is really interesting, because they know that there are teams that come from very rich towns, and they have all kinds of resources, and their parents are engineers, and some work for NASA, and they have an advantage. And then there are other teams that come from downtrodden New York City, the Bronx. Those guys have nothing. So the idea is to level the playing field. Now, for you guys, that's really not the problem here, because what you really want to do out there is go and crush it. You want to go out there and say, this is my game, this is my toy, this is my MPG. Man, this is the best thing on the planet. You better fund me or you're going to lose out. So that's what you want. But since Shaheem asked me to talk about the robotics thing, that's a thing where high school students actually compete internationally, and they kick ass. I mean, these guys are good. You should see some of the stuff they come up with. It's just amazing.
Thanks, Jay. The reason why I requested Jay to describe that entire process is to help you understand there is a process that works. There is a process that works to take your idea and take it all the way into realization. There is a process that actually forces you to work with each other, not just within your team, but with other teams to accomplish larger goals, right? And it's tried and tested, right? Jay's been doing that for many years, supporting that program. So that's why we want to let you know that there is a process that we have at AU. Jay is anchoring that process. We want to encourage you to participate actively in that. Don't get siloed into the demands of your curriculum all the time. That's something you have to do, but then each one of you need to find out a passion area that you want to invest in for the entire 4 years, right? That passion area, the studio ideas that you have to work, that you want to work, may change over the period of 4 years. That's absolutely okay.
Right.
Try and make as many mistakes. Jay keeps telling me, students, you need to let them make mistakes, right? When I tell him we should actually have a mentor who guides them all the way, he says, no, not necessary. A mentor can be there as someone who is there, who can address your questions, but not necessarily only tell you the path of success. It's important for you to take some of those paths that lead to failure. You make those mistakes, you become a better person. You have learned more, right? So making mistakes quickly is important, and participating actively in the clubs, studios at AU, I think it's a great environment for you to make mistakes without getting penalized, right? So that's something you all need to do. Any questions for Jay? All right, Jay, in the morning, oh, there is somebody. In the morning, they're typically a quiet batch.
Hello? Sir, what do you do when you run out of ideas?
Well, so it's an interesting question. So it's not as if you have this stream of well, yes, it is a question of having a stream of ideas. You remember when I told you earlier that you have to keep your eyes open and pay attention to the world. By which I mean literally get your heads out of those little devices in front of your faces and watch the world. I mean, observe people, observe things. Ideas will come. It's not like it's guaranteed that you're going to have ideas all the time. And it's not necessary either that you have ideas all the time. But what's important is that you keep having ideas. And when one of the things that's really important that I'll talk about is when you form a team, when you form what I call a batch. I don't know what the actual term that AU is going to use. But let's say the first, 2021 students form a batch, right? And, you guys interview, you get in, and let's say we've got 24, 25, 30 students in this first batch. Now, this batch becomes a team, and the team wants to brainstorm all of the ideas. Now, there could be a techie guy who comes up, a person who says, hey, I really love this idea of a role-playing game. And some other person may come up and say, well, I don't know, maybe we do a Chanpatna toy that lights up when you spin it. All of those are valid things. The important thing to remember, though, is never criticize the idea. This is called sandbox rules. When you brainstorm, never ever criticize the idea and never attack the person who's got the idea, because the idea of brainstorming is that out of stupid ideas come really, really good ideas. So, you may not think you have an idea, but you go into a meeting, a brainstorming meeting, and someone says, hey, what about Chanpatna toys? And you're going, oh, come on, man, you're not going to do that. And then someone else says, well, yeah, we could. What about if we put a generator in a Chanpatna toy and made a battery-less thing that lights up when you spin it? And now the other person comes up and she says, oh, wow, that's a great idea. What if we were to paint it multicolor so when it spins, it becomes white? And someone else says, yeah, but what if we were to do something else? And so that's how ideas are generated, right? It's not all in one person's head. I mean, you could have the germ of an idea and you think it's stupid until you go talk to somebody and they're like, that's a great idea. Because you know what? There's value there. But never, ever criticize someone for coming up with a stupid idea and say, oh man, that is such a stupid idea. Never do that, because in those ideas are actual gems. And I'm not just being facetious here. This is really true. It's called sandbox rules. You never criticize the person with the idea, and you never attack the idea. Never. So yeah, you probably will never run out of ideas as long as you're open to ideas. Really, I mean, that's really it. You just have to be open.
Thanks, Jay. Any other questions? Any idea that you want to discuss with Jay? Any idea you have for game studio already? All right. Jay, they're being consistent. Days are quiet.
Okay.
Right. Thanks, Jay. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
We're looking forward to having you on the campus when you're here next time.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, hopefully, we'll see a bunch of these kids over there too.
Yes, most of them. And some more.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Thank you so much for your time today.
All right, guys, have a great day. Thank you for your time. We'll talk later.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So, I'll just summarize that in a nutshell. Well, I'll try, right? Uh, we want you to pursue ideas, pursue passion outside of your curriculum. Extremely important for you to become well-rounded individuals as you finish your undergrad program. Uh, and to that effect, what we have is a club, a studio, and an incubation center, right? Club is where you start scratching the surface of your interest areas, passion areas. Um, Sometimes the clubs that you're associated with, you actually come up with a product idea, something that you want to realize, right? And you're saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to commit time and I'm going to drive this like it's a project, schedule-driven deliverables. And then we say, and then you say you need some help, you need some guidance, and maybe some infrastructure, right? And maybe some support to help you figure out how to get the money required to get that idea off the ground. We say, all right, this is a good candidate for studio. And then you be part of a studio. Now, when you be part of a studio, yeah, it does not directly impact your undergrad program scores or whether you pass out of it, but you're accountable. You're accountable because right now you're saying there is a project plan, there's a schedule that you want to stick to. And we are committing resources to help you achieve that, right? Once you start scratching the surface, going beyond it, peeling the layers, you realize that, this is actually good. I actually want to productize this. There is an opportunity for me to start a company with this. Maybe a pivot from it, but an idea related. You start where you started off with. That's when you get into the incubation center, where we help you clearly articulate the problem statement, help you design the solution towards it, help you prototype the solution towards it, help you figure out how to get your first 1,000 customers, right? That's what happens in an incubation center. And then give you wings to fly out with additional investors, float your own company, all of those good stuff. So there is a process, there is a path that we have already chalked out for all of you. It's important you all participate right from day one when you join AU in this particular process. To get you started, what we've done is we have started, Siddharth, is it 3 or 4 studios? We have ideas for 4 studios. By the way, ideally, we want you to figure out what are the studios that should function on the campus. But just to get you started, we thought let's figure out 4 studios to give you a point of reference. I encourage you to become a member for in one of those 4 studios immediately. Today, we have a breakout area where you get to experience some of the cool things that can happen in each of the studios. There are some simulation activities, different set of things that you can get engaged with today to understand, get a feel of what happens in each of those studios. Highly encourage you to familiarize with those studios, and by the end of the day, sign up for one of them, right? Important. And if you're not going to sign up for one of them, when we start our batch off, you will have to tell us what new studio you want to do, right? So you're either going to be part of one of the 4 studios, or you are going to have a solid idea for a 5th or 6th studio. All right? Packed? All right. Perfect. So we are going to do that later. I always find in the morning you are low on energy. Probably the breakfast at the hotel does not give you enough energy, right? Is that right? No? All right. Siddharth, can you please do something to get their energy levels up? No, we have 15 minutes if you can. Yeah? No, that's fine. We shoot away and talk. They need some energy. They need some boost.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Could we do the slide? Sure. No, as in no hurry. Once. Not me, the slide. Cool. Good morning. I see you all have paper and pens at your table. Could you all please make sure that each of you have a sheet, each of you have a pen. You might need to share the pen. That's okay. This is going to be quick. So this will require you to walk around the room a bit, okay? After you do a tiny bit of writing, okay? Cool. Everyone's got paper? So if you don't have paper, it's fine. Think about what you're going to write, then write it. Okay. Whatever you write has to be not more than 12 words. Okay. So small amount of text, big letters. I want you all to think about one time that I had fun learning was when blank. I want you to write on the paper that blank. Okay, so think about this. Take 30 seconds to think. Okay, one time when I had fun learning was when blank. Okay, please write out that blank on the paper. Do not write your name. Please write it so that in large letters that other people can understand. And if you don't have a pen, please ask your friend to share a pen with you. And I'll give you a bit of time to do that. And be honest, right? Your name is not on this. Nobody will know who wrote your answer. So just be honest. Just drop off my mask. Okay. Take 10 seconds more. This is not an essay competition. One sentence or whatever, less than 12 words. I see people still writing. Okay, I'm going to count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Who still hasn't had a chance to get a pen to write? Raise your hand if you haven't had a chance to get a pen to write. Raise your hand if you haven't written anything on your piece of paper. Okay, please finish very, very quickly. So if you didn't have a pen, you've had time to think about it. Cool, pens down, grab your paper, get up, okay, and be ready to move around. So could you put up all the, okay, so, okay, here's the plan, okay, it's very, very simple. You all have your piece of paper, just carry that one piece of paper, not the whole pad, okay. I'll run you through the plan and then go do it. So you're going to walk around the room. You're going to meet someone who also has a piece of paper, okay. When you decide to like meet and talk to that person, each of you will read out what's on your piece of paper, okay? So one time I had fun learning was when, whatever it was, someone dropped me into a swimming pool without telling me about it, okay, right? Or I tripped and I tripped and grabbed for the nearest support and it ended up being a thorny tree. Okay, that's true. So I want you to read that out in first person. Okay, so one time I had fun learning was when I tripped and reached out for support and grabbed a thorny tree. Read out your card, the other person reads out their card. Make sure you listen. This is an exercise in listening. Okay. Exchange your cards. You give your sheet to them, they give your sheet to you. Move on. Repeat. Okay? We're going to do this a couple of times, right? I'm not going to time you like we were in the bite sessions yesterday. Okay? I just want you to bump into someone, say what you have on your card, exchange, go on. Soon you will be speaking the words of other people, not you. Okay? You will be hearing the words of other people, not you. You might hear your own words spoken back to you. But just go about and let's learn from each other what are the times when we have had fun learning. Okay? Ready to go? Get up and start walking. So read it out aloud to each other. Right? You're not just. We can wrap up in 5 minutes. Yeah. Wrap up in a minute. So start making your way back to wherever you were seated. And don't try to find your original paper.
Just in sense of head count, is everyone available at your table? Is there a table where someone's missing? Oi, listen. Is there anyone who's missing on your tables? Someone's missing? Okay, we have one lost person. Gotta hunt them down. Okay, but is everyone, all other tables are filled? Okay, I want to hear a yes if it's filled. Yes. Is there a no in the crowd? No. Goodbye. All right, let's get started. I know that was really fun. I'm sorry we had to cut it down, but we have something quite exciting right ahead of us. Okay, so let's get this started. Yesterday, we learned about the industry panel, right? And they had suggested that there's going to be a huge upsurge in the startup ecosystem in India. And that obviously means that that's going to be disrupting the traditional practices that everyone is fully aware of. So now we get to hear from some entrepreneurs that are sitting right here in front of us. And they're going to be talking about the excitement of the startup world and what it means to create your own company. I'd like to invite on stage Kaushik Raju, our founder, to take this forward.
Hi, good morning. Thought you're supposed to say hello when you say hi. We've got some lovely people today. Yesterday you had the industry panel. Today we're going to look at the startup ecosystem and a little bit of the investor and accelerator ecosystem, so that you get a sense of different opportunities for you. We have with us as a keynote speaker Govind Shivkumar, who's a close friend. Govind works for Omidyar. He works with Omidyar. He heads Omidyar in India. Omidyar is a fund from the eBay founder. He sold eBay, went out. Now he lives in a farm middle of Hawaii, and he runs an impact fund that looks at social security, data security. So everything's being digitized today. And in a country level, how do you make sure identity theft, your banking, all the security that's required to keep us safe? Govind's working on that, and he'll give us more about that. More about Govind, he is a financial analyst. He's been in strategic investments with IMAX, Vartana, Sabka, and iFinance. Govind's current focus is, like I said, on public policy in the technology space, using open source to create large country-level infrastructure. So, Govind, request if you can join us here. And thanks, Govind.
Hi everyone, can you hear me now? Oh yeah, I can hear myself. Excellent. So, can we get the presentation up? Oh yes, okay, great, excellent. Yeah, so I want to do a small exercise where I want you to, for 10 seconds, imagine a couple of important events in your life so far. Just take 10 seconds, 2 important events. So can you raise your hand if you were present in those events? None of you were present in the important events that happened in your life? Okay. So I think what Kaushik said, being an entrepreneur is about a story, right? Telling yourself a story. And here I am to give you some toolkits to, of course, become a better entrepreneur, think about entrepreneurship as a career option, but more importantly, give you some toolkits that will help you make your stories better. So the first toolkit that is useful to think about is originality. And what does originality mean, right? There's a story of a little girl who is in an art class, and her teacher asks her, "What are you doing?" So she's like, "I'm drawing a picture of God." The teacher is like, "Nobody knows how God looks like." And the little girl goes, "They will in a minute." So kids, children, they go for it, right? They have original thoughts and they don't hold themselves back. To relate it to entrepreneurship, I'll give you an example of one of the first companies that I ever invested in. 2 founders, all of us have been to schools, and these 2 founders saw these schools in a very, very original way. They went to about 1,500 schools, did diligence on these schools, and saw them as business opportunities. These schools needed millions of dollars of loans, and we invested in this company pre-revenue, and today they have more than $500 million of loan book. So many of us have gone to schools, so many of us have spent time in schools. It took these 2 entrepreneurs to create an industry. Now this industry is worth about $4 or $5 billion, where banks, other NBFCs are looking at schools as business opportunities. Now this business opportunity couldn't have come from the US or UK or Europe. It's a very Indian business opportunity because here we have for-profit schools which run like businesses. So think originality is a key concept and a toolkit, right? Don't be afraid. Second is we have all seen squirrels, right? And you have all seen elevators. Have you ever seen a squirrel build an elevator to go up to a tree? Probably not, right? But human beings, we build technologies. We explore space. We create artificial constructs, fiction like banks. And we create things like nation states, which essentially are not available in nature, but we have an understanding that these things exist. So the other thing is just lateral thinking and creativity. We have managed to do this, right, over many years of millennia because we possess something that animals don't, which is to create. Third is inversion, or looking at from the opposite side. So what do you see here? Yeah? You see here someone who's very skilled at their work. Yeah? And if I look at my own story, it's very easy for me to convince myself saying, I am here because of all the skills that I have built, right? Like I worked in investing, I became a chartered accountant, I went to Haas School of Business, and here I am. But if you invert, luck has a lot of role to play in it. I could have easily been born in Afghanistan, right? I have a functioning brain, 2 hands, eyes, I can speak. That's luck. I was born to parents who somehow had the foresight to send me to an English medium school, right? When globalization happened, I was able to sort of take advantage of the movement. I was actually also present when internet really took off, right? So these are luck factors. Like I had nothing, I had no contribution. So when you invert and think from someone else's perspective, that is a good toolbox to have as an entrepreneur. And finally, I think we all think about our lives as spent in the pursuit of A, making money, getting more power, or following our passion, right? But we also have to give consideration to the environment. We have to think about democracy, because you are just not technologists. You're just not entrepreneurs. You just are not individuals. You're citizens. You'll be parents someday, right? So you have to think about issues such as liberty, freedom, and when you create a company, when you create a large-scale company, it has unintended consequences. So this is the fourth toolkit. In a sense, think about what is this in the service of? What do you want to be in the service of? This is not a placement for Omidyar Network. We use this to, let's say, think about 3 issues. One is responsible technology, how to make technology responsible. Capitalism, how to reimagine it so that it is inclusive. And finally, pluralism, where people from different backgrounds are able to flourish equally in this ecosystem, right? And how we frame problems, right? Like using this toolkit, how do you frame a problem? Think about a problem like how do you provide digital identity to 1 billion people, right? How do you make technology responsible? How do you keep the internet open and secure? Sorry, this is crazy. The answers sort of present themselves, where we then got an answer saying, why don't we invest in a technology tool called MOSIP? It has raised $1 billion, being used by 300 million people and will be used in 100 countries. So we have made significant investments in cybersecurity, privacy. The answers are not a big problem because you will discover them. The key is the questions. So finally, when you think about a framework for thinking about problems as entrepreneurs, the first thing is think about a big problem. Like, is there a big enough market? Huge problem. Second is think if there is an opportunity to grow, right? Like, can you create not just 1 unicorn, 10 unicorns, 100 unicorns, because unicorns is something that people really enjoy, right? Like looking at and thinking about. The other is, are the current trends supporting your assumption? For instance, there is no way on earth we could have had an Uber or an Airbnb in 1999, right? Like internet, smartphone, GPS, a payment system, right? And a phone. Imagine taking 5 different devices to call a taxi. That wouldn't have happened. So, and finally, can this problem be solved by innovation, right? Can there be entrepreneurship, or can even companies such as Jio or Tata Motors over a period of time solve the problem of, let's say, creating an India car, or Jio solved the problem of, let's say, getting 500 million people internet connections? These are big problems. And these big problems need not necessarily be solved by big companies. 7 years ago, there was nothing called Swiggy. 20 years ago, there was nothing called Google. So you can do it, right? If you sort of have some of these momentum factors. Finally, we have to think about what gives you value. Why does an investor, why does the society reward you? Society rewards when trends meet talent. Talent is you. And what are these trends? Today, the trends are, there is increasing digitization. All of us carry 1 or 2 devices across the board. Mine just rang. There is petabytes and petabytes of data. So much data available for you to sort of work with. There is demography. India's young, India is innovative. And formalization. Sorry, formalization is a lot of our informal economies are becoming formal. And no better time now to start, right? Like 17 billion has been invested so far in India, only next to China, largest amount in the world in startups, up until August 2021. 50,000 number of recognized startups, and I'm sure the number is like even more. This is what the government says. And $23 billion in exits. You know, one of the biggest issue was I create a company for 10 years and I'm worth today $500 million. How do I unearth that value? This year has shown $23 billion of exits, which means entrepreneurs are finally able to not just create value, but also derive value. And when you guys graduate in 2026, we're going to have $1 trillion more already added to the GDP. And it's going to be 1.1 billion internet users in India. Everybody's going to have some form of internet connection, hopefully. So the opportunities are just going to go up. Finally, as closing remarks, what I want to say is, you know, the world is your market. There are investors, there is talent. You can hire talent anywhere. You can go anywhere in the world. There are customers all over the world. Fail often and fail well, because if you're not failing, you're not doing anything original or innovative. And finally, always collaborate. Nobody did anything significant alone, right? We always remember these folks like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, but there were like millions of people and so many trends and so many issues that came together to create. If you believe that Steve Jobs sat in his house and created an iPhone, that didn't happen. But we tend to lionize entrepreneurs. That is great, but also collaborate with other people, because nobody achieved anything by themselves. But that's it, you know. Thank you. No questions? If there are questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I give you your time back.
Sir, I just want to ask that when you said we need to invert our thoughts and we need to start thinking from backwards, so what that actually mean? How we need to start thinking about it?
So when you look at a problem, we always have a certain view, right? And how you can really create value is by asking what if. That's what I meant by the elevator. What if there was a way from the ground floor to go to the 10th floor without climbing the stairs, right? So that is like an inversion, or you think from opposite. Whenever you think about something, you always think, what if this fails, right? That's what we first think comes to our mind is, what if I don't do well? Well, think about, invert the question and say, what if you do well? Then what happens? Play that thought across, right? What if you are successful? Can you really do something big? Can you create something big? So that is second form of inversion. The third form of inversion, I always think, is instead of always thinking about what is the smart thing to do, think about what is a stupid thing that you should avoid. When you avoid stupid things, you automatically move towards success. So these are three sort of toolkits that you can use, right? Imagining what ifs, think about what if I'm successful instead of what if I fail. And third is, instead of always thinking, is this a smart thing to do, just avoid stupid things, and I think you'll be successful.
Thank you, sir.
So, what do you enjoy most about being an entrepreneur?
Actually, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I have worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. What I enjoy most working with entrepreneurs are two things. One is their persistence, right? They are at it all the time. And the second is the sheer ingenuity to imagine the future. I think as an entrepreneur, it is important to have a great vision that you aspire towards, but also build through persistence. To really work hard at it over a period of time, even if everybody is saying no. So yesterday I was reading this article where Nazara Technologies, where it is the only gaming company in India to go public, had to sell their computers to pay salaries. That is persistence, right? They stuck at it and now they're all billionaires. But we only see the good part. We don't see the hard, like a duck flapping really fast underwater. That's what I like about entrepreneurs.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Okay, thank you.
There's a fun panel coming up for you. Well, you've been hearing a lot about digitization, data, AI, ML over the last 2 days. We also wanted to showcase the alternatives. So you've got a mixed panel. While we do have a company from AI, ML, we do have somebody who helps accelerate for industry. We also have people from the life sciences space and another startup from this civil engineering. So a couple of industries that haven't seen disruption in a long time. So we're seeing some interesting things coming up. First, I'd like to introduce Nitish Satyanarayan. So Nitish runs an interesting company where they use bee venom for anti-wrinkle creams. India is one of the largest markets for cosmetics. So, and he just told me that they also made a breakthrough where they're able to regrow hair through using bee venom. So, Nitish, please welcome you up on stage. Next, we've got Gokul Muralidharan. He's the founder and CEO of Agroid. He works in the AI space for customer acquisition. Previously, he worked with Goldman Sachs and Flipkart. Gokul, please. We've got Manoj and Nishchita, who run this company called Innerbox. So they're looking at solving the construction issues. One of the big challenges that we face in the construction industry is the timelines to get a building up. So they do interesting prefab structures that can be brought and put on a site within 24 hours. You'll have a house up and running. So welcome Manoj and Nishita onto the table. And lastly, for the final person on the panel, we've got Mr. Kanwal Rai. Kanwal Rai works part of Optimal Strategics Group. So while you've heard of accelerators that run by themselves, he works with industries. So a lot of the industries, traditional industries, are looking at keeping up with the entrepreneurs, with new age companies. And what they're doing is setting up internal accelerator programs. So Mr. Kanwal identifies young startups and connects them with accelerators within the industry. So. Thank you, Mr. Kanwal. I've got the center seat. This is going to be difficult. Nitish,
Yeah.
we're going to start with you. The first question in everyone's mind, are you harming the bees?
So definitely not. Uh, actually, bee, honey bee turns out to be one of the most beautiful species, and probably the primary reason why we all can grow food or crops because they are the biggest pollinators, right? I mean, they carry the pollen and then pollinate. Of course, birds can also do it, but bees are the biggest pollinators. And currently, the bee population is threatened because we're spraying a lot of pesticides, which are actually not intended for bees, but these chemical pesticides are very, very bad, right? So the bees get harmed. In fact, there was a very alarming report very recently that if the pesticide use continues any longer the way it is going, uh, we're going to have a global problem of food shortage, right? Which is a global problem, affects every country. So we don't harm the bees, definitely not. So we've built a small little device which where we can harvest the venom without actually killing the bees. So we don't kill the bees.
Thank you. I have a short question, but I'll ask you one more so that uh, what is it that you're doing with the bee venom and how does that actually go into cosmetics, hair growth? Can you give us a little bit more insight?
So we are actually not so just from a company perspective, we are more a venom company. We were excited by what can you do with venom. It's got a lot of these magical properties, but it's got, if you look at venom, it's got a good ingredient and a bad ingredient. So where we come in is remove the bad ingredient and collect the good ingredient, which can then become technologies for some application, right? So what we do right now is we collect the bees, bring it back to the bee venom, without killing the bee, of course. We bring it back to the lab where we can remove the bad ingredient, the poisonous ingredients of the venom, and then collect only the good ingredient of the venom. And there are several good ingredients. And then we try to understand what can each of these good ingredients do. One of the application with one of the ingredient we found is that they can actually make your skin cells grow faster. There is something called as collagen in your skin, which sort of gives you structure to your skin. So as you age, your collagen goes down, so which is why you get wrinkles. So we've just finished a clinical trial where we've shown that within 3 months you can probably make somebody who's at 50 years, right, bring their wrinkle count back to what they were when they were 30, 35, right? We could sort of, the second thing that we're doing right now is looking at other applications. We can actually now regrow hair. We've successfully done it in an animal model, 2.5 times better than what the next best drug can do. So what we do is we try to look at good ingredients and what actually they can do for human application. Yeah. There's also a good part to this where now the farmer is actually being able to benefit from an alternate source because honey as a product itself is not a very high value ingredient, right? So there's not a lot of economic benefit for bee farmers today to grow honey. So each gram of bee venom is actually more expensive than a gram of gold, or actually 2 times more expensive than a gram of gold. Each gram is it trades between 10,000 to 15,000 per gram, right? So now you can really collect without killing the bees and then create a really high value proposition for the farmers, which becomes a motivation for them to grow a lot of this.
Looks like you're going to put all of us in a Twilight movie. Thanks, Nitish. Next, Nishita and Manoj, either of you can take this. You're an interior designer, you're a mechanical engineer. Instead of going into the traditional vehicle space or the interior side, you guys decided to disrupt construction. What set you off on that path? What did you see as a problem and how did you look at it and what is it that you're solving?
Hi all. Thanks, Kaushik. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good question. Both of us are partners in the same company, but in different fields, but we're solving a issue which is common. Like, if you look at the way a house is built or a structure is built, from centuries, we're using the same technologies. Maybe a little bit of difference in terms of efficiency or timeline. But then, if you actually look at adding a lot of efficiency and value into this, and look at construction in locations which is actually difficult. So we started concentrating on houses far away from the city, like a farmland, where moving, like if you say a house is built of say 1,000 parts, 2,000 parts, each of this part has to be transported to site. You're adding more pollution to the world by this entire process. At the same time, you're decreasing the overall, increasing the overall cost and decreasing the efficiency because it's costing you. What we decided is we'll create a product which is completely prefab and finished in the factory. It has its own electrical, plumbing, sanitary. You have your interiors, all of it fitted, and then you lift it in a single truck and you transport it to site. So say this entire hall, we break it into pieces which are transportable in Indian road conditions, and the sizes could vary. So we added a commonality in this entire thing and compared it to a car industry when we build houses in a conveyor line in a factory. So as we are speaking right here, 500 square feet is being built in our factory every day. So it could be any field, a structure, high rise, it could be horizontal, it could be farmhouses, it could be hospitality. And the key in doing so is you're able to have control over quality. You don't rely on either different vendors whom you don't have a backing about. At the same time, you have control without external factors affecting you with timelines. So when you look at B2B, time is money. So if we are able to give products much early than your normal construction timelines. So that allows a fast to market, which means your return on investment is faster. So business to business, we concentrate there, and business to customers, like say 5 years, 10 years down the lane, or maybe even sooner than that, most of you could be our customers because you would all have a dream of a house. So you have a piece of land and you only need us. So we're removing every hassle that goes into construction and just simplifying it, adding a commonality and manufacturing 80-90% in the factory and transporting to your site. So that's a problem that every individual faces today, is the mindset that building a house is a hassle and you actually find it difficult to do so. So we're just getting that into play.
Thanks, Manoj. Thank you. Gokul, pleasure having you.
Hi.
You work in the AI ML space. This is the hottest space right now. Can you demystify AI for us, for the students, to tell us what exactly AI means?
Sure, that's a very interesting question, and I'll put it in a very easy way. What is AI? First of all, thanks for the opportunity. I'm Gokul here, co-founder, CEO of Argoid AI. So we built a product to predict human behavior online. Imagine Amazon, right? When we go and shop products, Amazon has different products shown for every individual. You may not notice, your homepage is different, your product page, whatever products they are showing you is driven by AI. It knows, I'll put it in a different way, like a different story. Let's say, in my village, when I was growing up, I used to go to a nearby store to buy products, a small kirana shop. So there the person knows me exactly what I want. I don't need to tell. Monday morning I go, he'll give me some cereal. So imagine today in online you have hundreds and thousands of products and millions of users. What if you have every person, there is a personalized AI sitting and predicting what you may want and then show you exactly what you want? That's what our company is. That's the definition of AI from a company perspective. But generally, AI is nothing but it's an algorithm. Fundamentally, I'll give an example of Alexa. We are talking to Alexa, right? Hey, play me a song. Behind the scene, what happens? There is an AI which converts your voice into text first. And there is another algorithm which converts text into what is your intent. Play, song, what does it mean? It sends it to the cloud. And there is another interpreter which takes that and connects to your device, and then basically like a Spotify or something online, and finally plays the song, right? So that's fundamentally AI. It's all about algorithm and predefined set of things. A combination of algorithm, set together to achieve a common goal, I would say.
Thank you. I hope all of you got some of it. Again, the panel is open for questions, so start thinking about it. It'll be good for you to interact with them while they're here. I've got Mr. Kanwal. How are you, sir?
Great.
You, yeah, yes, you are. So you work with the industry. The industry is trying to keep up with the startup ecosystem. So what kind of accelerators do these run? How would some students, if they had to, or look in that path, what are the kind of problems that you're seeing, and how would they go about the journey to maybe be part of an accelerator like yours?
Sure. I'll share some perspectives, right? So I'm at this verge where I'm seeing, for example, the next generation moving into education mode now, right? And with some dreams in terms of what's next after this program is over. The world is so fast packed, right? You don't see the next 3 years. You see immediately what is beyond next 3 or 4 years. Right? And sometime back when we started our career in terms of education, so the whole path that was laid on was more on medical or engineering side of the track, right? In terms of more employment-driven industry, to say so. The word startup in India was at that time not heard of. And of course, we have seen some of these founders like Infosys, Narayan Murthy, Ajim Premji, right, setting up. These were like startups grown in a way, but there was no technical term startup, VCs, funding, accelerator. These terms were not there. I think it's post-internet and digital world that we are seeing, where anybody who has the right kind of a mindset and skill set to solve the problem using these technologies, and even getting hold of these technologies is easier. You can get hold of these technologies even outside your education system, because you're talking about MOOC, you're talking about other resources and sources for learning and getting this education. So there's a fast pace of even bringing something new, as Govind is talking about, creating something new. So if you have a problem and you think you can create something, and with your intellectual capacities, right, with few people coming together, you see initial startups, there are 4 or 5 core founders, those who want to solve the problem in a cohesive manner, right? And they come together, spend some time, and talk about and persist through, right, to get to a place where they can demonstrate this particular problem can be solved by this particular solution, right? So this paced up, and what we saw more and more capital that is needed now in case we need to bring this to market. From invention to innovation, there is a journey, right? So you need to bring some kind of a capital in the market. That can come from a corporate, that can come from a university, that could come from grant, that could come from corporate funds, right? And that could come from an ecosystem which is looking into these startups, to say so, VCs. And then there is another entity called accelerators. Now these accelerators is what I've been part of, and these are the accelerators, those are part of the corporate programs. And there is a parallel trend called open innovation, which basically means that you no more the times of closed R&D or the closed innovation in the lab. You have to tap the intelligence, and you need to tap the talent which is anywhere in the world. And therefore, the network channels are open for every corporate. They need to tap onto the talent anywhere in the world. Need not be where exactly in the corporate or in a local, but global reach, and digitally as well. So fundamentally, open innovation is what opened up for connecting with the startup world, connecting with the talent outside, right? Finding solutions from outside and bringing in and taking to the market. So accelerators are nothing but the platforms on which these ideas which startups have, when they bring value to a point where they can show the proof of value or proof of concept, and they want to perhaps scale it in a live environment. They need a live problem. They need a market to try and take it forward and maybe learn and respond to those challenges as well. So accelerator gives them a short duration, say 3 months to 6 months to 1 year, depending upon what kind of startups in the platform they are looking for. Give them the right kind of a funding, environment, market access, and maybe the domain access, and help them see through how this problem that they are trying to solve is being solved in a regular practical world, real world as well. So accelerators speed up the growth phase, when you're at the early stage and when you're before funding, or maybe when you are even trying to think about the new idea and test it out to that, like post-hackathon, we are seeing ideas getting into the market. So in a hackathon environment or in a pre-funding environment, early stage, when you need to really test it out, this is the right phase to actually take it up on an accelerator platform. So accelerators help in a systematic way to fund them, to give them the right domain and market access, which is otherwise not easily accessible. So this is one problem that they solve, apart from funding. And some accelerators, you'll find that they will like to take a stake, some will just fund in terms of helping them to implement the idea. Some would like to take them into their product and incorporate them. So suppose you've developed an application, and that can be rolled out into my digital banking app. For example, if you are developing some security using biometrics, and that's something an access point for me in my mobile applications, I want to take it out to the market so I can early collaborate with the startup, right? And then take it out in the market and test it out in what we call a typical segment, like A/B testing, the term. And then you see how the performance of that particular application is there, and then you look forward for working together with the startup and take the journey together as a joint innovation. So there are various modes where they work and solve some of these problems which exist in a startup ecosystem. Accelerator is a part of that particular journey. I think just to add from perspective of where you are, in your lifetime, right, and then you will see unfolding many events and participating in them in the startup ecosystem, right? The 6 or 7, key factors that I've seen talking to various startups and founders throughout my, experimentations with them in R&D labs and taking these products out. But the first thing is, I have trying to put it down into some kind of a framework called 7R. So first is relevance. Whatever you are doing in terms of where exactly this particular IP that you're trying to develop or a solution that you're trying to take, what's the relevance of that? And that takes care of everything in terms of what's your vision, how the new trends or the foresight that you're bringing in, what kind of a problem or pain points you are going to address to that. What's the purpose, your own purpose, and how you perhaps relate to that particular problem and all, right? How much you are invested into that problem. So the relevance is the first part. So if there is whatever idea that you are trying to bring it up, when you want to take it to the market, you want to commercialize it down the line, right? What's the relevance of it? Relevance to you, relevance to the people who are going to be using your products, right? How you're going to change their life with this kind of thing, right? So those elements are the first set of elements which comes into the relevance perspective. The second is what I've seen is the resilience. That's something which is built into specifically for entrepreneurs' journey. They need to be more resilient because they may be taking off the beaten path because you are working on a solution which doesn't exist. So you are dealing with a lot of unknowns, and you may not find those unknowns already in terms of your past experience or maybe mentor or coaching. Even you need to figure out the right solution. Even to get to the solution, as you take it forward, during the journey itself, there are issues and challenges which need to be addressed. So you need to persist. You need to persist through that, and that resilience is a quality which needs the patience and persistence and passions to keep on moving.
Perfect.
Right. So if you are behind it, you will continue. The third R is rather it's related to the risk part of it, and you need to de-risk it. I think so. Depending upon what stage you are, they say that the universities are the right platform for startups. There's the right point of escalating. There's the right point of escalating the startups, because as you grow over a period of time in your age, you have other responsibilities, you have other dependencies. Your risk factors also increases. You can actually experiment twice and thrice. There is something called fail fast, which you move, but in universities, fail first. You have early advantage of failing first and experimenting without anything, as a major setback, to say so.
So if you don't mind, we'll pause there, because that was going to be my next question about for the students to integrate within the accelerator at such a young age. So we'll come back to you on that if that's okay.
Absolutely. So I'll keep 3 R there and keep 4 R parked.
Perfect. Thank you. Nitish, coming back to you. In the life sciences space, you're doing, while you have your startup, you are very well entrenched in the ecosystem of the startups coming up in the life sciences space. Can you give some insights on what and why it's an exciting space to be in for the students?
I think my mic, okay. So I think more and more the life sciences space is actually becoming extremely interdisciplinary, right? There is a lot of intersection of computer science specifically. So just to, okay, let's take an example, right? When the pandemic happened, right? And we knew vaccines are going to come out. The biggest problem, the biggest problem for all of these vaccines, they have to be transported in cold storage, right? It's okay in Bangalore, it's okay in Mumbai, it's okay in Delhi. But how do you take these vaccines, very, very precious vaccines, to some of the remote parts of the country in that cold supply chain, where there is probably not even an ice cream parlor there, right, for you to keep the refrigeration, which is nothing life science about it, right? It's not biology. It's a lot of mechanical engineering, a lot of thermodynamics. So there's a company that just solved this. How do you make a device that can just transport the vaccine without actually spoiling them, right? So today, life science and the biotech is becoming increasingly interdisciplinary. You have to be able to interact with people outside your domain. If you sort of remain within your domain, you are sort of limited with what is the output that you can achieve. Today, a lot of clinical decision making is actually coming from AI, right? A lot of clinicians today take the image, analyze it using an AI algorithm, and then decide what medicines to prescribe. Today, you are sort of prescribing a general medicine. What's going to happen, let's say 5 years from now, is that the clinician can make decisions where they're going to say, for Kaushik, this is the medicine that you need to take, whereas for somebody else, this drug may not work. How are they going to do it? It's a lot of interdisciplinary science. So today, biology is becoming extremely interdisciplinary, and going forward, right, when the human population is just going to go unbelievable, right? Food is going to be a problem, right? Today I was just yesterday I was reading a report. A lot of problems are actually right now happening in the animal husbandry industry. For example, chicken feed. 97% of soy that is grown actually goes towards chicken feed, right? And we have to now, people are already challenging the way conventional things were done. There's one company, I don't know how many of you know, called Impossible Burger, which actually made a burger which tastes like a meat burger, but it is actually not from meat, right? Because growing animals is a huge amount of inefficiency, right? You take an animal from let's pick a goat, right? It has a huge transformation to go through. So people are now increasingly saying, how can you make this in a more scalable way, in a more sustainable way? You don't want to grow acres of land just to then feed it to an animal, right? You can't you can't harvest or catch the fish from sea anymore, right? So there are all of these problems. Food is going to be a big problem. Protein as such is going to be a big problem. There's going to be a huge protein deficiency. Are we still going to tackle it with conventional ways we were doing, conventional agricultural ways? Are we going to look at it in a more disruptive ways? Medicine, again, what happened with COVID, I mean, all of us know. So I think from biotech perspective, two key things, that the scope or the landscape is unlimited. Every walk of life that you can go through, there's actually a problem which an interdisciplinary biotech field can actually solve. So it's huge, right? And key to it is actually interdisciplinary, to talk to people outside, sit down, and then bring in best of different areas to then put together a technology that can actually serve a problem.
Thank you. Thanks, Nitesh, for the insight. Manoj, Nishi. So while you're solving the problem of construction timelines, what are the technology challenges that you see that could be improved in the construction space that you're working with? What are the elements that are missing, and maybe something that the kids can work on or can think of as ideas in this industry?
Hi. In terms of technology challenges, I think one could be, I think in our space especially, is the acceptance. That's taken a while for people to understand what the concept is, and because you're so used to seeing a certain way it's being built, so to look at something different took a while. But to see going forward in terms of technology, what for us personally is, as of now, we can do ground plus 2. So that's 3 levels. So how do we kind of improve the technology to go build higher, taller, so with, not affecting the environment in a way, and the safety regulations, and to be able to build in any environment, any topography. So that's something that, as for our company, something that as a technology that's like a challenge that we're looking forward to solve. And collaborating, when you look at the way China builds and the stuff that they do, they're definitely way ahead of times. And so to be able to have the government in support, to be able to let you kind of build in in the use of the technology and to give you permissions and to have people accept it, and even like all the other segments in terms of like the banking, to be able to provide loans for such structures. So it's a mixture of problems that needs different addressing, but I think going forward we will be able to find a solution to that. So.
Thank you. So we're seeing materials being a challenge, money being a challenge, as well as marketing, I guess, for people understanding what this product is.
Yes.
That's something that most startups do.
Absolutely.
Face a challenge with.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Gokul, I have a tough question for you. After seeing Black Mirror, AI can also be the bad guy in this space. So how do you protect us from that?
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple schools of thought, right? See, fundamentally, I will leave this to the humanity. I mean, I believe in humans. Let's put it that way. Thing is, in every innovation comes, that innovation can also disrupt things, right, in a bad way, like atomic bomb. But that could also do a lot of good things for the humanity, right? So even, given a quote of Elon Musk. Elon Musk said AI will rule the world, right? That was trending for a while. But he is only using AI to do autopilot for his cars. The way Tesla cars are able to understand what is on the road and they're able to drive directly, right? So, so thing is, AI, I mean, anything, be it any innovation, can do good or bad. But I feel the governments and these whole organizations, everybody will put appropriate restrictions in place. Standardization of AI in a good way so that it won't fall into wrong hands. I think it's all about our collective efforts we have to do together to make it really good.
Thank you. I guess ethics plays a big role in the way it's going to be used in the future. So hopefully our education system, we're able to build in the code of ethics that the next generation will take AI in the right direction. So to get back to you, if you can continue where we were, the question was, now the students are getting into the first year. If some of them already are pretty clear on where they want to go, they have certain goals in terms of either a company that they want to look at or something that they want to do. How do they get identified at this stage if they want to start interacting with the industry? They already have ideas and something that they want to work on over the next 4 years with us. How would they get identified? What should they do to be seen by the industry?
I think what I'm seeing is that there is more outside than inside. Whatever you take, whether you talk about education or a corporate, as an individual, you have more access to information and knowledge outside that box that you currently are in, right? When I'm in a corporate, I learn more from what is from outside in perspective. In the college, there is more from outside in perspective, right? So there is more knowledge people are now imbibing from outside whatever the current box they are in. Whether it is about, what they want to do in their life, they have a perspective beyond specific grooves, and they would like to try and pursue. So that's the right thing to do when I was talking about when you want to accelerate or you want to test your idea and you have those zeals to create something of your own. It's a good way to start working with the corporates right away. So whether it's a university startups, there's 3 kinds of way you move forward from a university can work with the startups. One, it can help the startups to grow based on the student's idea itself, and that's where with the labs and the ideas coming from industries and where they can participate along with the industry can come up front, right, in the right kind of an hackathon and then support those ideas. Second is in terms of the community startups, where the universities are and in and around what are the communities or the social challenge and issues are, they're participating in that manner, bringing the students to participate and solve community problems. And a third one is more in terms of the university itself innovating it, whether it's a faculty which is driving an IP creation with industry and they want to include them as a part of the study and research programs. So 3 drives in which they get to know more about it. And the universities also become, for example, it's not about just your taking the idea to the market. At a research and idea stage itself, we have an IP. And most of the time, the universities also tap onto that, solving the problems in IT. They get grants, either through corporate or private or funds, and they try to address the problem at an ideation level itself, which can be converted into IP like patents. And these patents can be commercialized or licensed down the line. It all depends upon what space we are operating in, what university and what problem and what student space they are in. So fundamentally, there are various pathways to tap onto these opportunities to try what you want to do, right? Either by your own and by therefore participating through university with corporates to be part of those problems, or through university or through community. So 3 or 4 different ways. And of course, as an independent and in IT space, it's quite possible to start on your own, whether it's a mobile technologies, whether it's a AI ML per se. There are a lot of applications in AI ML, and data science AI ML is something which is unfolding. It's like huge, and you can take a point problem and solve. Just to take the first example that you got on, the cold storage, cold chain industry, right? So they have a vaccine. Vaccine is produced by X location, maybe outside the country. It has to reach to a Y location, and that may be 3 days or 4 days or maybe week apart, and you have multimodal transportation. You start with the road, may fly in, may go into a ship cargo, then again last mile will be in your road transportation, and it will be stocked again in a freezer mode. So you have 3 or 4 days to weeks days of your cargo, which is a cold chain. Now, if as a customer, if and vaccine is something which I want to make sure that it has come to a state where I can use it the way I want to use it, and during the whole journey, the temperature is maintained. If any point for an hour the temperature is not maintained, it's not worth for usage. And then it's the whole, the stock is kind of a waste, and you need to reship it, and you have a waste of time. So from IoT or AI ML perspective, the idea is to put a sensor inside that shipping equipment, right, the device that you're using it. And that sensor on a periodic basis connected to the telematics to keep giving the temperature on an on basis. From the overall entire period, you can track that what was the temperature inside that particular unit. Now, this technology and this problem has nothing to do with knowing exactly the shipping. It's just to know how the sensor operates, because the sensor is plugged and the data is fed. And then you can be part of that particular solution, to say so. Even in ethical AI, I was saying, in terms of the data talking about, it's not in terms of the use that is prominent. You can there are many things that sometimes you come up with the new ideas where I always feel the law is always, or legal framework is always behind that. So it depends upon at what edge you are solving the problem. So if you are solving a problem at an edge where there is no law, there is no interpretation in terms of how to take it to the market, because nobody has again seen it, what's an ethical and ethical side of it. And even you don't know as an innovator, right, in terms of where to invent and how to take it to the market. So there is unethical and ethical or explainable AI to say, so how it actually, I'm going to take a data from you, the consent of you as a user in terms of AI, and how I'm going to use the data for you to solve your problem. And you need an approval from the person, then it all becomes ethical in that manner, right, per se. So even in ethical AI, there are AI itself, for its own application of AI itself. There is no end in terms of what problems people can get into and solve. And the knowledge may not be left to what exactly is being taught in the curriculum. You can imbibe the knowledge from outside and follow any of these pathways, and experiment and take risks in a manner that makes sense.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? We'll open it out. Got a question there. There's a mic. Take this. There's one more mic.
I think there's one.
What is your area in which you're working with behavioral? What exactly do you build a persona building or augmented insights? The behavior is based on what? Only the transactions?
Good afternoon, sir. I want to ask a question
data.
from Mukul, sir.
Browsing data.
Sorry, who?
Mukul, sir.
Gokul? Or
Gokul, sir.
Gokul.
Yes, sir. Sir, I want to ask a question. Sir, as you said, today we have artificial intelligence that gives personalized feeds to everyone through tracking our activities over the internet. But in some cases, this has led to AI impacting our real-life decisions and behaviors. So while creating a new platform, how can we keep a check on this unwanted interference of tracking our activities over the internet and impacting real life decisions. So where do we draw a boundary?
Yeah, sure. See, even in AI, right, especially when you're talking about the ad industry, I think all of us have experienced. We go and buy a shoe, Nike shoe, let's say I want to buy, and I bought it. Or I am not buying it, I saw it somewhere. But wherever I go, it keeps following me, right? That's an annoying thing. And that is also done by AI, like these large companies of the world build that. Now, there are regulations coming into place. Good news for consumers is there is this whole third-party data, I would say new initiatives are happening across the industry. So Apple rolled out this feature, right, where these companies cannot track consumer behavior across different apps. Then others are going to follow, inherently, Google, Android, all this will happen. And I think that is where the whole world is moving towards. As I said earlier, when bad things happen, it's going to be made good over a period of time. That's one thing. Secondly, as he also highlighted, going forward, people are going to be taken consent whenever, let's say, I'm a consumer. If I want to use the power of AI, am I willing to give my data? You can make a choice fundamentally. That's how the world is going towards. If I want personalized recommendations, I need to share my data, otherwise I don't want. As simple as a Truecaller example. Truecaller, the way it works, if you give your phone number, then you can see other phone numbers, right? Whom are going to call you. That is how in my perspective, it's going to shape towards. Hope it answers the question.
I'll give you some perspective in terms of, from AI ML and the data that you're talking about. One is to look into from your perspective when you're creating a solution. Another is to look, for example, people who want to sell this solution to in the market. It is becoming more and more digital, right? For example, earlier when you were doing banking, there were branches, used to go there, they were physically used to see the customer, they can see the pain point, they can know what customer wants, and they can build the solutions around it because they're physically in touch with the consumer. In a digital world, I don't see, Amazon doesn't see me, right? How will they know that what I want, what my needs are, who I am, right? So they need to see me as a data set, a data packet, my transactions, my choices, my interests, right, my preferences. And that can come from my past behavior, right? I can see some patterns out of it. So the only way to sell in a digital and a big data world, where I don't get to interact with my customers, is to know them through these data points. And through these data points, I can then predict in terms of what could be the next one, because I've seen people who are asking similar needs have then started purchasing these products as well. So I can give you recommendations on that. The choice of exercising that particular preference or recommendation is still in your hand, but it helps them to grow the market more predictably. So the idea of AI ML in this space is more to the fact that the customers are digital now, and therefore I need to rely on the data. But I cannot use unethically, or I cannot steal the data, all right? I need to get consent. So that's what the market is moving towards. It was earlier cookie-based database collection, third party was more intensive. Now the customer data, and there are in fact a new breed of industry has come up called customer data platforms, and that's entirely looking into this space of how to capture this customer data in a more ethical way, in a consent-driven way, first order data as a preference. And of course, other companies are also inventing. Like every time you go to a website, they're asking you, this is the purpose of tracking through cookies for you. So there's the first order data, second order data, and the third order data. The first is when I will directly ask you, right, through surveys, so asking you your preferences. Second is that you have given the data to somebody else, and you have given him permission that I can take the data, right? And you have signed that deal, so I'll take from you. And third is like you don't know, I'm taking it and consuming it. So fundamentally, the third one is going away. First and second, and that will keep driving the AI ML.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
My question is, when will we be able to achieve general AI and conscious AI?
Any example you want to provide?
Like we have certain categories for AI. Narrow AI, we are, like these days we are using narrow AI, then a strong AI. So like when will we be able to achieve strong AI and conscious AI?
Okay. So my view is this way, okay. This is a pretty higher vision to, mimic entirely human intelligence. Sometimes I always talk about, why human intelligence needs to be mimicked. Can you see as sharp as an eagle from the up high? is your vision that sharp? Can you sense the signals as good as perhaps in the sonar way in under the water? Right? So when you're talking about the journal, it cannot be just left to human intelligence being encoded into AI. You need to get the best of vision, best of sensing, best of acting and reacting, and it may be across various species, right, per se. And the idea is to get inspired from there and then build that system, which is more automated in a way, which can be better than the corresponding species that it acts, right, and more reliable. More when you say AI ML, it is like getting away some of the tasks as of now, which humans feel very boring when they are asked to repeat, right, and it's very difficult, and there will be a lot of errors. The journey starts with the calculator, and in fact, human used to be called as computers at that time in NASA's days when people were computing it and tabulating it, right? So they were called PCs per se. So the journey started from there in terms of automating as much as possible and getting into a space where you need to make certain decisions based on data, right? Not just a calculation, but you need to take some decision. You need to decide routing, and even that decisions can be captured, and therefore the AI slightly moved into that area. And then 1960, 1970s, most of the AI algorithms were written around that time. As you mentioned, in terms of the AI is nothing but algorithms. Most of the algorithm was written 1960, 1970s. But the computers didn't have the power to compute it. Talking about the cloud technologies, which can actually give you the GPUs rather than CPUs to process your image data and all, now they can actually compute it faster. It's the same set of calculations, but in enormous amount of data, and which is now being squeezed into less amount of time, so that you can take this decision bit instantly. You still need huge infrastructure to run it all. So fundamentally, the AI as a general AI, first human intelligence have to increase a lot in terms of finding it out the local intelligence which exists in species and bring them together into one system. But that will be a mission and a goal which all the scientists, neuroscientists will continue to build upon it. But solving the problems which are repeatable, which are possible today using these algorithms and infrastructure, and can help avoid those decisions as well, bring the risk down. That's something which is definitely is going to change the life a lot. And that's the mainstream as of now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good. Can you give a big round of applause for the panel? Thank you very much, Mr. Kanwal, Gokul, Manoj, Nishi, and Nitish. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us some insights on your journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kaushik. Hope that was quite refreshing for you all. Now, a set of instructions for you guys. We will be moving to your student housing visit, right? So these table numbers that you see on the screen are the allotted numbers, not the ones that you are sitting on, because there have been some switches, right? So if you don't know your allotted numbers, Zoya and Anusha are sitting right there. You can go to ma'am and find out what your allotted numbers are. Now, the instruction will be for the first bus number, for table number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You guys will be moving to the bus directly. Shivika and Nishant, could you show a show of hands? You will have to follow them directly right now to the bus. May I request table number 1 to, bus number 1 to kindly stand and move to your buses. Leave your bags here. You will be coming back for lunch and picking your bags up. Other students, please sit on your tables. Are there any students who don't know your allotted table numbers? Shivika, are we done? Okay. Okay, time for bus number 2, instructions. Bus number 2, which is 9, 19, 11, 12, and 13. You will be following Nupur right here. Nupur, please show your hands to them. Directly to your lunch in the pool area where you had your dinner yesterday. Post that, you will go pick up your luggage and board the bus. Right? I repeat, you will follow her, bus number 2, to lunch in the pool area. Then you will pick up your luggage and board your respective buses, right, outside in the lobby. Can I request you to stand and go to the pool area for lunch? Nupur, please take them.